CEOs used to talk of
compétitivité, rentabilité, productivité, une croissance, flexibilité, réussite.
But these days, given the scale of natural disasters linked to climate change, floods, droughts, devastating wildfires, major firms are being urged to take action to save our planet. It seems like these CEOs are now prioritizing the environment and climate, which have become major concerns.
Climate change continues to be our biggest challenge.
Ce que nous avons envie, finalement, c'est de partager avec vous notre envie de relever ce défi climatique.
Our planet matters. That's why our commitment to sustainability is not only essential to our world, but it's also essential to our business.
Il est temps d'agir.
Et maintenant, il est l'heure d'agir.
Il est temps d'agir.
The upshot is that one of the so-called super major oil companies has decided to be ethical and go green. Whatever you do, don't call it Total. It's now TotalEnergies in the plural. But there's still a long way to go in becoming a green giant. According to the latest figures provided by the multinational corporation, we have worked out that Total currently derives 92% of its revenues from fossil fuels. And by 2030, hydrocarbons will still make up 80% of its turnover. Becoming a green energy giant is not going to happen overnight. Has the multinational listened to the International Energy Agency's warning? To limit climate change, the IAE advises against launching new oil exploration projects. No new oil and natural gas fields are required beyond those that have already been approved for development. It looks like TotalEnergies is paying no heed for this caution. It has a huge oil exploration project in Uganda in the pipelines. This project has been criticized by various NGOs who have denounced the risks of irreversible damage to the environment and climate and serious violations of human rights. Patrick Pouyanné, CEO of TotalEnergies, vehemently denies such accusations.
Moi, j'invite tout le monde à aller voir ce qui se passe réellement sur le terrain en Ouganda. Parce qu'il est assez facile de critiquer qu'on est dans un salon à Paris.
You are quite right, Mr. Pouyanné. We need to go to the site in Uganda to uncover the truth. To be able to investigate freely in this extremely authoritarian country, we decided to pose as wildlife-loving tourists. Look, TotalEnergies is following us. Where there are tourists, there are holiday snaps, and we didn't have to try too hard. With its breathtaking sunrises over the savannah, wild animals by the thousands, some of which are endangered, spectacular waterfalls whose waters gush at a staggering rate between narrow gorges into the Nile. This country is aptly described as the Pearl of Africa. But this gem might never look the same again. Because Total, along with its Chinese and Ugandan partners, has just started construction of its mega project, Tilenga EACOP. There are 400 oil wells drilled in the north of the country on the shores of Lake Albert. Of these oil wells, 140 are located in Uganda's largest national park, Murchison Falls. 200,000 barrels of crude oil are extracted over the course of each day. To transport this vicious oil, a 1,445-kilometer-long pipeline, heated to 50 degrees centigrade, crosses 16 protected natural areas. The pipeline transfers the oil to Tanzania, where it will then be shipped to Europe. This project is expected to emit 34 millions of CO2 into the atmosphere each year, equivalent to the annual emissions of 13 million cars. In order to carry out this colossal project, 100,000 people will have their homes expropriated. TotalEnergies maintains that the people affected by the project will see their financial situation improve. But can we really take their word for it? We begin our investigation in the south, in the Masaka region, a remote area where there is less police presence than in the rest of the country. 3,800 households, that's nearly 20,000 people, are affected by the pipeline's route in Uganda. Like this father who says he hasn't been able to use his land for 4 years.
My name, I'm Birimuye Robert Sechondwa. Total took my land.
Before Total's subcontractor forbade him to operate on his land, there was an open-pit sand mine here.
Okay, so I used it to come here every day.
Yeah.
And this was the entrance.
Of the sand mine?
Yeah.
So what is this?
It's a peg. Is the location where the oil pipeline seems to pass. It is going to cross the road. They said it is the junction. It is that of Total. They placed it.
Since 2018, even before construction began, Robert Birimouye has not been able to use his mine as it was preempted for the project.
I feel in much fear. I think a lot. How am I going to survive?
Before Total arrived, the family man earned 780 euros per month, more than 3 times the average salary in the country. These days, he can no longer afford to send his children to school. In Uganda, you must pay for education.
Okusinziira ku muddumo guno n'embeera eno eriwo twakosebwa nnyo era situyina kyetu twetetenkanya. Omuntu bw'akuyitira akalimo ng'ogenda okakola akalimo kumala agagenda n'okolayo olina akuwaayo 1000 oba 2 oba 3,000 n'osobola okufuna ky'osobola okuliisa abaana. Naye nga ku budde buno obudde tewali mulimo guli awo gwe tukola.
In terms of compensation, he tells us that Total offered the equivalent of 7,800 euros, which he deemed a pittance and refused.
Neŋŋaana okusinziira nga nali nfuna emitwalo 10 oba onzibye nnyo. Kati kyali kyetaaga gwe n'obeera nga atompa nnyingi. Okusinziira ku mbeera y'ekitundu kyange ekyo kye baatwala, mu kugula ekitundu ekyo nze nalowooza nti kiri nnyamba emyaka gyonna ne famire yange. Kubanga era ly'ettaka lye nnina kati ate lyaggwaawo, sirina kyakukola.
Robert Birimouye had hoped to leave his mine to his children. Now he's still waiting. He has no idea whether he will ever receive proper compensation. So he decided to fight back by becoming a spokesman for his village. According to the October 2022 estimates, 55.4% of the people affected by the project, that's 66,863 residents, are still waiting to receive compensation from Total. Some people are not included in these official figures. They don't own land or a home affected by the project. However, the pipeline is going to make their life much more difficult. Such is the case for this man. The only source of water in his village will be blocked off by the pipeline.
Amanya gange omulangira kiwa John Bosco ssentebe w'ekyalo Kitakomaga. Total ejja dutwalira na kubwereere lwaki. Tetulina buwandiike bwe twakola naye ng'ate omuntu wa mitwalo 10 akabanja akatono bwe kati.
For the 3,000 residents in John Bosco Kiveva's village, the water from this spring is vital. They use it to cook, clean laundry, feed cattle and, once boiled, quench their thirst.
Bajjajja baffe bataata baffe bonna kubakulidde ku luzzi luno. Nye pipeline yayitawo naye ate tebakolanga agreement yonna nti bagenda tufunira oluzzi lwaffe olulala. Ab'amafuta bagenda dutwala naye nga tebatukoledde we bagenda kulusima tugenda kukola tutya.
Kati lugendo ki olulala okutuuka ku luzzi olulala?
Okutuuka ku luzzi olulala waliwo oba eba kwota ya nga 3 kilomita nga okuva wano we tuli mu Kisenyi wano. Ate tugenda ku kyalo kirala another village eri gye tudda kino ekyalo kyaffe kitaka.
John Bosco Kiwewa says that their only contact with the representative from Total was back in 2018. They asked for a new well.
Batusuubiza nti bajja tuwa oluzzi. Naye tewali agreement yonna gye twakola nti bajja tusimira ki oluzzi. Bwe bweraliikirivu buli muntu bonna bano bwe balina. Bwe bweraliikirivu obuliwo ku bantu.
We discovered dozens of stories like that of John Bosco and his water spring, or Robert and his mine, over the course of our investigation. But we don't hear about any of these people in Total's publications. The multinational would rather show off their great social achievements made possible thanks to their oil project. On their Twitter account, Total has posted a video of a certain Judith, who is all smiles posing in front of her beehives that were paid for by Total.
My name is Barry Judith. I'm from Kasenye village. I was affected in RAP 1. The TotalEnergies give support to me with the 10 beehives. Like now I'm talking, I have 60 plus beehive in the site. The project have changed my life, increasing more money in my life. My children, they're in school. All of them, they're in private school.
We found this same Judith in articles written by fellow journalists who took part in a press visit to Uganda, with all airfare paid by Total. For example, in the magazine L'Usine Nouvelle, or here in Jeune Afrique. Judith is probably the best example of Total's financial support to the residents. We too asked to visit the TotalEnergies plant in Uganda, but the company refused. In any case, there is a sort of discrepancy between the testimonials the company is presenting and the ones we gathered ourselves in Uganda. We're not the only ones who have noticed this. Pierre Laroutourou is a member of the European Parliament. He is initiating a resolution voted by Parliament which has called for an embargo on the project.
Bonjour.
Heureux de vous rencontrer.
Merci de nous recevoir. C'est un peu le Parlement européen à Paris ici.
Tout à fait.
C'est l'hémicycle.
Ça ressemble beaucoup, oui.
Vous connaissez bien ce dossier parce que vous êtes rendu sur place. C'était en juillet 2022. Vous avez même rencontré les dirigeants de Total Uganda. C'est vous qui avez demandé à les voir?
Non, pas du tout. Effectivement, pour comprendre ce qui se passait là-bas, on a été 4 députés de 4 pays différents, de 3 familles politiques, à se dire on va aller voir ce qui se passe vraiment. On est rentré incognito. Quand je suis arrivé, j'avais une chemise à fleurs, un livre sur les girafes, un livre sur les éléphants, parce qu'on avait peur de se faire bloquer par la douane. Et en fait, on a pu passer. Et quand les gens de Total ont su qu'on était là, ils nous ont dit on vous montre tout ce que vous voulez.
Alors, qu'est-ce qu'ils vous ont montré? Comment ça s'est passé?
Donc, je ne sais pas si on peut voir quelques-unes des vidéos qu'on a rapportées.
Si, bien sûr.
Donc voilà, ça, on est dans un parc naturel où il y a 1 an, il n'y avait que des girafes et des lions. Et vous voyez qu'ils ont fait quasiment une autoroute, une très très large. Il y a un énorme pont autoroutier et puis des camions pour faire passer la foreuse parce qu'ils espèrent dans quelques semaines commencer à faire les forages. Donc là, vous les voyez, ils ont voulu nous escorter. C'est les dirigeants de Total, ils sont en 6 ou 7. Ça, c'est le directeur général de Total Uganda.
D'accord. Là, il y a attaché de presse, il y a tout le monde autour de vous. À aucun moment, vous ne pouvez faire ce que vous voulez.
Non, non, ils sont là pour nous guider, pour nous montrer les images qu'ils veulent nous montrer.
Dans la communication de TotalEnergies, j'imagine que vous l'avez vu aussi, mais on s'est retrouvé à plusieurs reprises à voir le nom d'une certaine Judith. Alors, on va regarder ensemble, par exemple, ici. Ça, c'est un tweet. On parle de Judith, on la voit en combinaison d'apiculteur avec ses ruches derrière. Même chose ici, on a un papier ici où on explique que Judith, 38 ans, fait partie de ceux qui ont choisi d'être dédommagés financièrement. Vous aussi, vous l'avez rencontrée, Judith?
Judith, c'est en même temps le souvenir le plus drôle et le plus sinistre de ces 9 jours en Ouganda. Parce que Judith, c'est la caution sociale de Total. À chaque fois qu'on dit qu'il y a des familles de paysans qui souffrent, qui n'ont pas de quoi vivre, il nous explique qu'il y a Judith qui revit grâce à Total.
Et vous l'avez rencontrée au milieu de ces ruches?
On l'a rencontrée, ils ont tenu à ce qu'on aille voir Judith. Donc Judith nous explique que grâce à Total, elle revit, qu'elle vend son miel, que ses 7 enfants vont à l'école privée, que toutes les femmes du village, toutes les femmes veulent faire comme elle. Et le directeur général m'a dit, faites attention, Pierre, n'allez pas trop près parce que vous allez être piqué.
The MEP thought the story was too good to be true. One particular detail got him thinking.
Le soir, j'ai dit à mes collègues, c'est quand même bizarre, j'ai pas vu beaucoup d'abeilles, est-ce qu'on peut y retourner le lendemain?
To clear up this mystery, Pierre Laroutourou and his colleagues went back to see Judith, this time without being chaperoned by Total. Judith was not there, and when they opened the beehives one by one,
on se rend compte qu'il n'y a aucune abeille. Celle-ci aussi est vide. Elles sont toutes vides. Depuis 3 mois, ils organisent des tournées, ils payent les allers-retours aux journalistes pour que les journalistes viennent voir, pour améliorer leur image. Mais si c'est ça le meilleur exemple d'une réinsertion, c'est juste un énorme mensonge. Et s'ils mentent comme ça à des journalistes ou à des élus du peuple, vous imaginez comment un paysan qui ne sait pas lire et écrire, ils peuvent lui mentir. Et je crois que toute la stratégie de Total, c'est basée sur des énormes mensonges.
Let's leave Pierre Laroutourou for a moment to return to our investigation in Uganda. This time to inquire into the human rights violations denounced by the NGOs. Human rights activists here have come under pressure or been arrested for standing up for those affected by the project known here as PAPS. We have arranged a meeting with one of them near the town of Bulisa in the northwest of the country. In this oil drilling region, journalists investigating Total's activities are monitored closely by the authorities. The Ugandan president is very keen on this project and has made oil a personal matter.
The oil was discovered by the NRM under my leadership. With this awareness, Uganda will become certainly a first world country in the next 50 years.
Uganda is currently one of the poorest countries in the world, plagued by rampant corruption, where all opposition to the regime is severely repressed. As an opponent of this oil project, our contact lives in hiding. To reach him, accompanied by our driver, we must first find a mediator. He will act as our guide for the last few kilometers, but that alone is no mean feat.
Ok, j'ai reçu un message qui me dit « Vous allez arriver à Bulisa, je vous attendrai sur le bord de la route. » Après un certain pont, après avoir dépassé une certaine montagne. C'est un petit peu énigmatique, mais on cherche une certaine personne qu'on n'a jamais vue. He's quite anxious about the fact that we are coming to make interviews in Bulisa, you know. Yeah, sure, yeah. Because of the pressure they had.
70 kilometers later, we go past the certain bridge and descend the certain mountain, so now we must keep our eyes peeled. We can't afford to miss him. Ah, is that him on the left? No. Or perhaps this person here? No. Him? Oh, wait, that's a woman. Well, that can't be him. He would have waved. Ah, it actually was him.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise, hi. Fine.
Our contact immediately asks us to remain discreet and cautions us.
The government officials, they don't allow anybody to talk about the damage which is being brought by the Total or Atacama. They just want to defend them, even though they're shooting the pubs, project affected persons. They don't want you to talk about it at all. So when you talk about that, you become the enemy to the government officials.
And what happened if they think that we are here to talk about that?
That one, automatically, they will arrest us.
And then what?
After arresting,
Yeah.
they take you in jail.
The guide makes us take the back roads to avoid the police station and the Total offices in Bulisa.
This one is yours.
Okay.
We finally find the activist underneath a mango tree.
It's hard to find you.
Very nice. How are you?
Thanks.
My name's Mugisa Jos. Because I disagreed with the poor performance of Total in oil and gas activities, I went to prison for 2 months.
Jos Mugisa is the president of a local NGO that is campaigning for Total to properly compensate the 100,000 affected people. Many are farmers who live off their land.
They are not allowed to use their land. How do you stop someone from using the land? The only resource that he has been depending on. Some people have stayed for 5 or 6 years without compensation.
In October 2021, the NGO's office was closed by the authorities, and a few days later, Jos was arrested. The activist was accused of purportedly making threats to members of his family, which he has always denied. He was sentenced to 58 days in prison.
The conditions were very harsh. I was enclosed inside, no permission to go out. And that's why even right now I'm feeling a problem with my sight. Very poor now, I can't read and write. Get myself diarrheating because of food. Water, very unsafe. And even up to now, I developed algae. My body, I'm at the time scratching myself because the skin has been destroyed. Because of bad things like bed bugs, lice, sleeping on the wall, no bed sheet to cover yourself.
Jos Mugisa was eventually released. Since then, he has continued to speak out on this matter for its violation of the Ugandan constitution. The act provides that the government may acquire land on behalf of proponents such as Total. But in exchange, the government must guarantee prompt payment of fair and adequate compensation. For his attempt to enforce this right, Jos now lives in fear.
I feel very insecure. The way I move, I can't move alone freely. My movements are restricted.
And what about your family? Do you feel
Threatened. They are threatened. They have even been advising me to resign from that system of work. But I say, no, I must die like Jesus.
He has since been arrested again. Repeated violations of human rights is something Pierre Laroutourou also noticed during his visit to Uganda.
J'aimerais vous faire écouter ce que Patrick Pouyanné, le PDG de TotalEnergies, a dit devant ses actionnaires.
Le respect de l'autre, c'est notamment le respect des droits humains, sur lequel nous ne transigeons pas dans nos opérations à travers le monde.
Le respect des droits humains, je pense que M. Pouyanné, il y a des limites à ne pas dépasser parce qu'on a vu des familles qui n'ont plus de quoi vivre. On a vu un paysan qui a perdu 20 kilos. Il y a des étudiants qui sont descendus dans la rue pour dire qu'il fallait stopper ce pipeline. Et il y en a 7 qui ont été mis en prison pendant plusieurs jours.
Alors, vous dénoncez clairement le non-respect des droits humains. Vous pointez aussi des risques graves sur l'environnement et sur la biodiversité. Vous qui vous êtes rendu sur place, qu'est-ce qui vous inquiète particulièrement?
C'est un des plus beaux parcs naturels d'Afrique. Là, vous voyez des antilopes absolument splendides. On a vu des éléphants, il y a des phacochères. Ouais. Vous ne voyez cette antilope qui se dit « mais voilà, j'étais chez moi et pourquoi j'ai plus le droit d'être là ?» Churchill disait que c'était la perle de l'Afrique, tellement c'était beau. Et c'est dans cette perle de l'Afrique que Total veut faire des forages. C'est juste ahurissant.
However, Total claims to have got everything planned out to protect the environment and biodiversity. In these videos of the company, scientists whose projects have been funded by Total explain everything that's being done on site to protect the animals.
We're attempting to count all the birds we can record in 3 different habitats.
We put what we call telemetry devices, and colloquially they are called radio collars.
Count the animals, put collars on them to watch them by drone, to predict their movements, and then create passages for them. Total also pledges to increase the number of park rangers by half to clamp down on poachers. The multinational even has a biodiversity coordinator on site.
The overall goal for biodiversity is to leave the Maximise Falls Conservation Area in a better condition than if the project had not taken place.
This goal was made into a commitment during a press release in December 2021. Total's project has left the international scientific community rather skeptical. But in Uganda, with the exception of Tom Ogwang, very few openly dare to criticize them.
I've had a lot of knowledge about what Total is doing.
On behalf of an expert panel appointed by the Ugandan government, this researcher, a specialist in oil projects, has examined the measures planned by the French firm to alleviate the impacts on wildlife.
You cannot control animals. Unless you are going to fence off the entire park, then it becomes a zoo. It's not a park, because in the park, animals are supposed to move freely. They're looking for pasture, they're looking for water, they're looking for whatever. You know, animals are animals. So even if you put drones, some of the mitigation measures that Total promised seems to be unrealistic.
Some of Total's other proposals may even prove to be counterproductive.
Doubling the number of rangers, as Total is proposing, may actually complicate the problem, because the more rangers you have in the park, the more interaction and disturbance you're having on the animals. The whole concept is that animals don't want to be disturbed. They don't want light, they don't want noise, yet the activities of Total will definitely produce noise. They will need light. So, will the rangers stop the light from lighting? It's not possible.
Total claims that its project will have a net beneficial impact on biodiversity and environment. What do you think about this statement?
The statement made by Total that its activities will have a net benefit outcome on the environment is far-reaching. We can say maybe they will try to mitigate, but there's no guarantee. So it's sort of a laughable statement.
In this report, the independent expert mission has made some rather damning conclusions on the multinationals' commitments. The assessment processes are not very transparent, impact studies are biased, and focuses insufficiently on key issues.
The report presents a very positive picture of what Total will do and tries to hide away or to run away from the negative aspects of their activities. I would say it's not fit for the purpose.
In response to criticism, Total has made some new promises, restoring forests for the chimpanzees and reintroducing rhinos. TotalEnergies refused our interview requests, but responded to our questions in writing. The multinational claims that the indemnification process has accelerated since this autumn and that only 20% of affected families are yet to receive compensation. The company states that it has a complaint management system that records all grievances, including for the compensation process. As for Judith's beehives shown to European parliamentarians, TotalEnergies maintains that they were empty because they were new and being prepared for the next season. TotalEnergies is not the only multinational to assume social and ecological responsibility. It now seems that all the major companies have the same objective: carbon neutrality. This is top of the agenda for major business leaders.
We want to make BASF carbon neutral by 2050.
At Google, we were the first major company to be carbon neutral in our operations.
Ce que nous visons, c'est la neutralité carbone dans le monde en 2050.
It seems that achieving carbon neutrality is the holy grail for multinational companies, but what does that even mean? Imagine taking a nice bath. The planet is a little like this bathtub. and the water from the tap represents greenhouse gases like CO2 generated by human activity. The CO2 remains stable for a long time, like the water levels in this bathtub, because the CO2 is evacuated, absorbed by forests, soil and oceans, which are known as carbon sinks. Except now, global warming is getting worse. The water flow increases because we are emitting more CO2. And the water in the bathtub doesn't drain as easily. Why? Well, because the pipes are blocked. In other words, the forests are disappearing and the soil and ocean are saturated with carbon. So our planet is saturated with greenhouse gases. It is, like this bathtub, about to overflow. To prevent the excess of CO2 and global warming, there is only one solution: rebalance everything. Firstly, by turning off the emissions tap. And then allowing the new carbon sinks to absorb the CO2, particularly by preserving forests. On a global scale, this is how carbon neutrality works. But nowadays, it has become a marketing tactic for businesses who label their products carbon-neutral bottles, carbon-neutral nappies, carbon-neutral tomatoes, even carbon-neutral coffee capsules.
Merci. Je vous propose un petit café?
With this promise, Nespresso allows you to enjoy its coffee pots with a clear conscience.
L'idée, c'est qu'en 2022, une tasse Nespresso, où qu'elle soit dans le monde, devienne carbon neutral.
Did you hear the CEO of Nespresso correctly? These 10 billion capsules that are sold every year, made from aluminium and mined halfway around the world, are allegedly carbon neutral and do not impact global warming. Yeah, right. By what miracle is Nespresso managing to make these capsules carbon neutral? In their official documents, the multinational has outlined the ways it achieved this. It has reduced its emissions by 5%, mainly through the recycling of capsules. As for the 95% remaining emissions, Nespresso is focusing on carbon offsetting by planting trees. What to make of these business climate strategies? We have a meeting with this carbon markets expert.
Aujourd'hui, les entreprises ne cessent de parler de neutralité carbone. Pour atteindre cette fameuse neutralité, elles misent beaucoup, comme Nespresso, sur la compensation carbone en plantant des arbres. En quoi ça consiste, la compensation carbone ?
Bien, c'est l'illusion qui est diffusée par un certain nombre d'entreprises et d'acteurs économiques qu'on pourrait neutraliser, annuler finalement les émissions de CO2 que l'on fait à travers les voyages aériens, à travers la circulation automobile, en plantant des arbres ou en conservant des forêts.
Vous parlez carrément d'illusion.
Oui, c'est une illusion. Vous allez émettre du CO2 en prenant par exemple un vol transatlantique.
Ouais.
Une bonne partie de ce CO2 va rester dans l'atmosphère pendant des centaines d'années.
Ouais.
Et il faudrait, pour compenser ces émissions, que le carbone que l'on va stocker, que l'on va constituer en plantant des arbres, reste lui-même stocké dans les arbres pendant des centaines, voire un millier d'années. Mais vous ne pourrez jamais garantir que ces arbres vont vivre suffisamment longtemps et vont stocker suffisamment longtemps le CO2 pour pouvoir neutraliser complètement les émissions.
Ouais.
Deuxièmement, on pourra planter des arbres sur une certaine partie de la planète, mais très très vite, on va atteindre des limites qui seront des limites.
Parce qu'il n'y a pas assez de terre?
Parce qu'il n'y a pas assez de terre, parce qu'il y a de la concurrence avec les terres agricoles. Et troisième chose, si vous voulez, c'est que le pire peut-être dans cette affaire, c'est que ça donne bonne conscience aux consommateurs. Et d'une certaine manière, je peux effacer effectivement mes péchés carbone en plantant des arbres.
Carbon offsetting may be an ecological misconception, but there's no denying that it's a flourishing economic market, now valued at over 1 billion euros. One of the leaders in this market is called Pure Projet. This startup was founded in 2008 by Frenchman Tristan Lecomte. He's the face of the business and is quite well regarded by the media.
Tristan Lecomte, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Surnommé l'homme qui murmure à l'oreille des multinationales.
On passe de devenir une personnalité clé dans la lutte pour l'environnement. Sa cible, les forêts. Son objectif, leur redonner vie.
Vous voulez en fait apprendre aux multinationales à être plus loyales avec la nature et ça commence par planter des arbres.
To save the planet, Tristan Lecomte plants trees and sells carbon credit to multinational businesses such as Nespresso. You're probably wondering how it all works. We'll explain everything. Nespresso emits lots of CO2. Like all companies, it's mapping its carbon footprint. To reduce it, Nespresso is doing what we call carbon offsetting. It uses a third party, Pure Projet. Pure Projet plants trees. Every tree that is planted absorbs carbon. 1 ton of sequestered CO2 entitles the company to 1 carbon credit. Pure Projet sells this carbon credit to Nespresso, which can in turn remove 1 ton from its carbon footprint. And this is how Nespresso collects carbon credits and can thus claim to be removing 95% of emissions from their carbon footprint. And what better way to make its carbon footprint greener than rushing to the rescue of a righteous cause, the Amazon rainforest, an area threatened by deforestation. In Peru, the multinational is one of the main financiers of a project that goes by the title Jubilación Segura.
Los productores saben que el cambio climático ya es un desafío real y el productor se siente orgulloso de ser parte de una acción a favor de contrarrestar el tema del cambio climático.
These farmers plant Pure Projet's trees. They are responsible for maintaining them until maturity. They can then chop them down and sell them. Over the years, these trees will have stored CO2 and therefore generated carbon credits. Improving the lives of Peruvian farmers while storing carbon is a nice idea, but once again, a flight of fancy. We are here in Lamas, in northern Peru. There are no representatives from Pure Projet here. The firm outsources the planting of trees to a local cooperative, Oro Verde.
Hola.
Julio César.
Sí, ¿qué tal? Mucho gusto.
Julio César Garcia is the project coordinator for the reforestation. 1 million trees have been planted in the area by 1,200 coffee and cocoa farmers, and that's not all.
Objetivo que es medioambiental. Estamos en el vivero de Oro Verde. Acá nosotros producimos plantones forestales. Se inicia desde la selección de las semillas. Y estas son las plantas de un mes aproximadamente. De esta etapa ya nosotros seleccionamos para poder entregar a los productores, ¿no?
His task is not just limited to the distribution of plants. He and his team also monitor the growth of trees on the land.
Al tercer, cuarto mes se le hace otra visita para hacer el seguimiento de las plantas ya sembradas, pues, ¿no? Entonces después al octavo mes o al mes 12 se le hace otra visita para hacer ya un segundo monitoreo y tener la cantidad específica de plantas que están vivas, pues, ¿no? de acuerdo a las especies. Después ya se planifica otras visitas.
Pero una visita per año al mínimo.
Al mínimo, sí.
To find out more about these tree plantations, we will have to head deep into the Amazon rainforest. In the village of Alto Shambuyaco, we are meeting with one of the oldest members of the cooperative involved in the project.
¿Qué tal, don Víctor? ¿Cómo está?
Buenas tardes. Buenos días.
Victor Salas owns 3 hectares of land in the hills of the village and grows cocoa, coffee beans, and since 2010, trees for Pure Projet.
Acá entramos.
But the beautiful view must be earned. 45 minutes of uphill hiking later, we reach the plantation.
La primera planta que tenemos es la teca. Este es el que ha desarrollado menos. Habían ya tecas gruesas, hay tecas también más gruesas.
Pure Projet recommended him to plant this tree that is native to Asia in the middle of his cocoa trees. The combination of these 2 crops was supposed to boost his cocoa production. But on Victor's plantation, the teaks didn't have the desired effect.
Al principio, la teca, cuando empezó a crecer, se desarrolló muy bueno, se desarrolló. Y estas ramas pues se abren demasiadamente, ocupa pues casi todo el círculo de 10 metros, se hace una sombra y le quita pues la luz a la planta que es el cacao, ¿no? Entonces ahí me di cuenta, la teca no está bueno para dentro del cacao. Al final decidí a cortar 100 troncos de tecas y eso ya le he dado uso para hacer en alambrados, en chinchinas para trabajar invernas, también chinchinas para huertos y en algunos tambos pequeños.
In the last 5 years, he has cut at least 100 teaks out of the 1,200 planted trees. The agronomist assured us he informed the cooperative that he cut down the trees that were meant for storing carbon, but didn't specify the number, and he didn't replace them. What Victor Salas is doing is not in compliance with Pure Projet's rules. In these official documents, the company has planned annual tree cuts, but under several conditions. It says here that the entity technical team will be in charge of the process of selection of the trees to be cut down, and most importantly, that all harvested trees, in other words, chopped down, will be replanted. Is Victor Salas an isolated case? We have a meeting with another farmer. His face is familiar to us. We came across Juan de Mata in Pure Projet's press documents.
C'est bien vous, là?
Sí, yo lo sé. Cuando era con la cooperativa Oro Verde, pues, ¿no? Impulsamos para un proyecto de reforestación. Para mí es un placer que en el país Francia me conocen.
According to Pure Projet's documents, Juan de Mata planted 596 trees. That was in 2010. Today, this cocoa farmer estimates that only half of them are left. More than 100 have not survived. And he admits to having cut more than 100 for personal use, such as cooking, heating, and furnishing his home. These missing trees will have gone undetected by Pure Projet.
Una vez haber hecho la entrega, solamente inspeccionó con su asistente técnico si han sembrado los plantones. Ahora de ahí ya no. Y así era. Pero de ahí ya no se responsabilizó ya.
¿Vinieron a monitorear justamente cuántos árboles te quedaban para justamente saber cuánto se generaba de créditos de carbono?
Ya no entraron ya. Ya no entraron ya. Definitivamente ya no entraron ya.
Juan says he didn't sign a contract with the cooperative and that he has lost contact with the project leaders.
Nadie controla lo que hace de tus árboles.
Negativo ya, ya nadie. Ya, nosotros ya somos los únicos que debemos tomar decisión.
¿Cómo se puede contabilizar el crédito carbón que tus árboles producen?
Ya no se puede contabilizar porque en verdad ya no estamos en comunicación. No hay nada, se quedó ahí todo ya. Sumamente, sí.
We have new questions for the cooperative. Don't forget, they told us that they carefully monitored the development of the trees.
Algunos productores nos cuentan que hace varios años que la cooperativa no los visita o han cortado árboles para su uso personal o para venderlos sin advertir a la cooperativa. ¿Cómo explica esto?
Ok, estamos hablando más de 2.500 parcelas. Entonces, cada año tratamos de visitar a una cierta cantidad de productores, hacer, como te mencionaba, estimaciones.
No todos los productores cada año.
No todos los cada año, pues no. O sea, si queremos llegar a todos, no lo vamos a cumplir, pues no, porque eso requiere un montón de inversión, un montón de personal para visitar a todos, pues no. Tenemos un equipo forestal, somos ahora 8 personas que nos dedicamos a hacer todo el procedimiento.
8 personas
sí.
Por 1 millón de árboles.
Pero obviamente, como te explicaba, no vamos a visitar a todos los árboles, pues no.
8 people to control an area of 2,500 plots with 1 million trees. It's difficult, that's for sure. How can they ensure the storing of the sold carbon credits under such circumstances? In this official document, Pure Projet has guaranteed 23,768 carbon credits for Nespresso between 2015 and 2019, which is how many tons of CO2 the trees absorbed. We asked Tristan Lecomte for an interview, by mail, then by phone, because he lives in Thailand.
Hello?
Oui, bonjour, Tristan Lecomte, c'est Élise Lucet.
He wishes to clarify 2 things about the reforestation program in Peru.
De toute façon, il est vérifié par un organisme tiers. Tous les 5 ans, c'est la certification suivant le standard Vera. Et quand le certificateur y vient, il va aller vérifier aléatoirement 10 à 15% des parcelles.
Selon nos informations au sein de la coopérative Oro-Verde, il n'y a que 8 personnes qui sont en charge du suivi de 1 million d'arbres déjà plantés dans la zone. Est-ce que vous considérez par exemple que 8 personnes pour surveiller 1 million d'arbres, c'est suffisant ?
Oui, parce qu'il n'y a pas besoin de les surveiller tous les jours, les arbres. C'est un contrôle une fois par an.
Mais vous voyez, comment vous pouvez garantir des crédits carbone aussi précis, alors que nous, quand on va sur le terrain, on nous dit qu'il n'y a pas de contrôle.
Mais c'est pas nous qui le faisons, qui générons les crédits. C'est un certificateur tiers qui délivre. Nous, on garde un buffer de plus de 20%, entre 20 et 30% sur le niveau de risque du projet. Donc, c'est une partie des arbres qui ne seront jamais vendus.
D'accord.
On va vous envoyer les réponses par écrit pour ça, donc vous l'aurez.
Mais est-ce que c'est possible qu'on se rappelle, vous nous envoyez vos réponses et on vous rappelle derrière?
On verra, ouais.
Despite being a television regular, Tristan Lecomte does not seem very willing to meet us. No surprise there, then. Meanwhile, let's recap. This project is certified by a standard Vera VCS, which guarantees that the carbon is actually being stored. From our talk with Tristan Lecomte, this all seems well regulated. Every 5 years, a certification body inspects 10 to 15% of the plantations. And most importantly, Pure Projet doesn't sell all the carbon credits generated by the planted trees. It reserves 20 to 30% of them, a sort of life insurance for the trees. Let's dive back into the project's official brochure. The first shock, it's not 20 to 30% of credits that are being reserved, but just 10%. It's written right here. And that's not Tristan Lecomte's only inaccuracy. A leading organization that audited this Pure Projet program in 2015 visited a total of 14 plantations out of 2,416. That's just 0.57% of the plantations. In 2019, a second certification body visited just 9 out of 3,810, or 0.23% of plantations. This is nowhere near the 10 to 15% mentioned by Pure Projet's boss. Let's go back to Alain, the carbon markets expert.
Pour moi, en tout cas, c'est mieux. Je voudrais vous montrer un témoignage d'un agriculteur et je vous propose de l'écouter.
La teca, cuando empezó a crecer, se desarrolló muy bueno. Y estas ramas pues se abren, se hace una sombra y le quita pues la luz a la planta que es el cacao, ¿no? Al final decidí a cortar 100 troncos de tecas.
Nous savons très bien d'expérience qu'il est très rare que les paysans suivent, surtout quand on a des milliers, les prescriptions du porteur de projet. C'est-à-dire qu'on dit aux paysans, vous devez faire ceci, vous devez faire cela à tel moment et comme cela. Et c'est absolument impossible. Chaque paysan, pratiquement, a ses contraintes. S'ils ont besoin de plus d'argent, ils vont couper des arbres parce qu'il y a une opportunité qui s'ouvre ou parce qu'ils ont...
Parce que ça fait de l'ombre,
etc. C'est quelque chose de très connu.
Dans ce document de Pur Projet, il est dit clairement, et c'est en anglais, que c'est la coopérative qui doit encadrer les coupes. Et dans celui-ci, il est dit, les arbres récoltés seront replantés. Donc on se dit qu'il y a un décalage entre ce que Pur Projet prévoit et sur ce qui se passe réellement sur le projet.
Oui, j'ai étudié pas mal de projets de compensation carbone sur le terrain. Tout se passe comme si la réalité suivait exactement le déroulé imaginaire du projet. Et ça ne se passe jamais comme ça.
Ce qui est étonnant, c'est que ce projet est certifié par un des labels les plus exigeants du marché carbone, vous le connaissez. C'est le label Verra.
Verra, VCS, chaque fois qu'il y a un crédit carbone certifié dans le monde sous le label Verra, il touche une royalties de à peu près 10 à 15 cents de dollars par crédit carbone. Donc l'intérêt pour Verra, c'est qu'il y ait beaucoup de crédits carbone certifiés.
Dans un projet de compensation carbone comme celui-ci, Pur Projet est tenu de mettre en réserve des crédits carbone. C'est une petite réserve pour compenser les risques. C'est une sorte d'assurance. Voilà. Pur Projet met en réserve 10% des crédits carbone générés par les arbres plantés. Est-ce que 10%, ça vous semble suffisant ?
Ça paraît tout à fait insuffisant. La possibilité aujourd'hui qu'il y ait des sécheresses avec des arbres qui meurent, qu'il y ait des incendies, surtout en ce moment, bien évidemment, augmente d'année après année. Généralement, le grand jeu, c'est de sous-estimer les risques, de dire finalement, il n'y a pas tellement de risques, etc., il n'y a pas de sécheresse. C'est un peu ce qu'il y a dans ce document de projet, d'ailleurs.
Alors, Pur Projet sous-estimerait ces risques, d'après vous ?
Tous les projets sous-estiment les risques, parce que si les projets de compensation carbone notamment dans la forêt, prenaient en compte les risques à leur véritable niveau, ou avec une marge de sécurité, probablement, ils ne généreraient pas assez de crédit carbone et ils ne seraient pas assez rentables.
After all this, we called Tristan Lecomte back. He refuses to pick up. Pur Projet simply sent us an email. The quantity of credits is accurately determined in an independent and transparent manner by Verra VCS. Pur Projet can therefore not sell more carbon credits than what was certified on site. And is Nespresso, which buys carbon credits to offset 95% of its CO2 emissions, being thorough enough? The company responded in writing. We only purchase carbon credits that are certified to the highest industry standard. They ensure that the impacts relating to each carbon credit generated are real and independently verified through regular audits. Both Nespresso and Pur Projet are hiding behind the Verra standard, so we got in touch with them. They told us that the carbon credits are calculated based on the methodology developed by the United Nations, adding that in the future, with data collection via satellite images, accuracy will improve. Before we finish, we must tell you one more thing. Nespresso has announced the sale of biodegradable coffee capsules. However, the brand continues to sell its aluminium capsules.